Okay, we'll go ahead and call the June 9th Finance Committee meeting to order. Due to the guidelines for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is not accessible in person to the public. As such, this meeting constitutes an emergency meeting under the Missouri Sunshine Law. And just so you know, it is being taped for review. Okay, thank you all for coming. And what the meeting is going to kind of be twofold today. There's obviously a lot of questions out there in regards to public school funding moving forward, and how is the pandemic going to affect the district moving forward. And so what I'd like to do today is present some information to you and then create an opportunity for dialogue for you to ask questions and provide us with feedback on how you want the budget to look moving forward. And the reason why I say that is because we've been in a pretty fortunate situation with our FY19 budget and our FY20 budget, but there are going to be hard decisions that are going to have to be made as we prepare FY21, 22 down the road. We've been able to do a lot of capital improvements that are probably going to have to be on hold or go by the wayside unless something happens from a funding source. And with that being said, you know, when you spend $9, $10, $11 million on capital expenditures, that's what people are going to expect you to do moving into the following years. And you'll see after today that funding will go from 11 million to about 3 million. So there's going to be a lot of questions as to why did this happen? You know, why did we have to stop this? And so it's going to become an opportunity for the Board of Education to prioritize what they see is in the best interest of the district. I think we've put a couple leases in place that already show in the last 18 months that show what your priorities are, and those will continue. And we put them in there so we put them in as leases so they wouldn't take up a big chunk of the dollars, so it would be a little amount each time. And so, Bridget, so we'll start with this. And if the current board members, I apologize if I bore you with this. I'm just trying to kind of go through and talk about the budgeting process as a whole. So there's a lot of different things that we look at whenever we're preparing the budget. And I don't hand that out because it would be hundreds of pages worth of documentation and it would just bore you to death and you probably wouldn't understand. So Bridget and Katie, who's in the back of the room, and I'll ask her to assist me if I say something wrong. But they created an infographic. This infographic is actually online, and we've received a lot of positive comments in regards to this as to whenever we put it there. So thank them for the preparation. But the first thing that we take a look at is we take a look at the tax rate. Okay, the tax rate drives everything from a county and local standpoint. And as you guys know, our tax rate is a lot lower than any school districts around us or any school districts in the suburban area. So that presents the first challenge. Our tax rate is set at $4.24. It's going to end up being something similar to that, once July and you set the tax rate at the August board meeting this year. There's three funds that go into that. There's a general operating fund, there's a debt service fund, and then there's a total levy fund. They're part of the tax rate in itself. That's where we spend those dollars from. If you go right below that, the next thing is assessed valuation. As you can see, from 2014 to 2020, our assessed valuation has progressively gone up a little bit. And you can see out to the side what those numbers represent. One thing, because of the pandemic, the unfortunate thing, I think you're probably going to see an assessed valuation that is going to be even at best. I'm hoping for an increase, but the budget that was built in front of you that we'll talk about next was built on a 0% increase in assessed valuation, because I feel that that's probably what's going to happen. And that's not going to be only in St. Joseph, that's probably going to be across the state of Missouri.
Gabe, on the right-hand side of that graph,
Yeah.
what are those numbers?
On the right-hand side, those are percentages.
No, that's the adjusted operating total tax levy, so the black bar, you can see how the adjusted operating tax levy has gone down and then sort of flatlined and then increased when we.
Oh, okay,
So
you're talking about the 0.5? Yeah.
That corresponds with that bar, that
Correct.
line graph.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep, and then as you calculate your tax bills, the next thing, I guess it would be on your right, it talks about step 1, step 2, step 3. We kind of go through this and it's really basic, but a lot of times people don't understand, what the assessed value of something means compared to the market value, and so we put that on there. So if you see the market value of a home is $100,000, your assessed value is only going to be $19,000 because it's 19% of what the market value is. So that's one thing to keep in mind, as we figure that stuff and as they talk about it, it's not dollar for dollar from market value versus assessed. And so we put that on there just as a.
And commercial property is.
Commercial is actually
Yeah.
33,
Yeah,
and then personal is,
19.
I think it's 19 too, isn't it? Yeah. So then, there's a tell me more section. One thing, I think all of you know this, but the top 5 taxpayers in the St. Joseph School District are Midland Empire Retail, Triumph Foods, Boehringer, Missouri American Water, and Spire, and that accounts for $49.1 million in assessed valuation that we received. So, I don't know what challenges these companies are facing. Obviously, the Triumph has been in the news, from a financial standpoint. How is that going to affect us as far as assessed value is concerned? So that's why we really are treading lightly on using any kind of increase to that,
I think number one's gonna have the biggest hit.
the biggest hit. Okay, and so on the second page, we talk about how money is invested, not how money is spent, right, Larry?
Right,
How money is invested.
just,
It broke it down from a percent standpoint. Instructional support of 8.5. It took Larry 23 months to get that through my head, but we finally got it, just so you know. Instructional support 8.56, transportation 4.1, support services 21.97, direct instruction 51.19, and facilities and maintenance 14.18. That is how it is invested right now. But as I talked about, with those dollars on the capital side in Fund 4, it looks like we're not going to be able to live like we have the last couple of years, so that facility and maintenance percentage is probably going to go down. The good thing is, the direct instruction is where you want it to be. We're here, it's about kids, and so that's where the bulk of the dollars go. And then people always ask, where does your money come from? And you can see in the circle graph there that we get 37.11% of our money comes from the state, 10.29% comes from the federal government, and that 10.29 constitutes a lot of the work. When you're dealing with the federal government, there's a lot of paperwork and those types of things. So just know that we're not getting a whole lot of money for the work that we're doing to keep up with the federal mandates that are out there. Local dollars, 49.62, and then county 2.97. So that's the makeup of all the revenue that you receive into the school district.
Would you have a guess as to what the average is for the state in terms of local tax revenue, in terms of percentages?
Like what the state, most, like
Other school
other
districts.
districts?
Yeah.
We're pretty similar. Now, you'll get into counties and metropolitan areas that have a very rich tax base. And if that's the case, let's take, in my previous district, there was close by, there was a big nuclear power plant. Okay? So if that nuclear power plant is in your school district, then you don't need a whole lot of extra help from the state because you're getting all the revenue from that. Let's use Weston, for instance.
Yeah.
West Platte's a very rich school district.
Yes.
It's not rich because of state government. It's rich because of what they have from a local tax base. But unless you have that, most of them are very similar
Okay.
to what you're seeing here as far as St. Joe's concerned.
So most school districts are rural districts.
Yeah.
And this is similar to most other districts.
And the St. Louis side, I would say it's probably a little bit different, you know, you have your Ladue areas, you have those types of things where they're not, Kirkwoods, they're not taking as much of the state dollars, because they don't need it.
They still get it though.
They still get some.
In the ratio percentage, it
80-20,
becomes smaller.
you know,
yeah.
where you're
Because
looking
their
at
locals are
37,
higher.
they might be getting 16, 12, you know, and I'm just using those numbers, those are just as an example, but there are districts that get, and there are districts that get more than what we're getting here. The 10.29 from the federal side is pretty high, but we have a lot of federal programs, and we have a lot of things that, of need, you know, we get a lot of money from the title side, but, you know, some schools will have Title I, Title II, and that's it. And, you know, we have Title III, Title IV, and we have a lot of different areas, ESOL, and those types of things that take those types of funding in order for us to operate.
Question for Lou. Lou, you said Midland Empire, they take a hit, but will their property value change?
No, I mean, as a company,
The
financial
company will
probably,
take a
yeah.
hit, but that may or may not affect us other than if they don't have the money to pay us.
Right. I know rent out there is partially based on revenue for tenants, so, I mean, there's gonna be a huge drop off in revenue.
Is that East Hills? Is that what that is?
Yeah, huge drop off. I don't remember what the percentages were, this was years ago, last time I checked, but yeah, it's gonna be bad.
I think another thing you mentioned early on, Gabe, was projecting upwards the number of people that will not be able to pay their property tax this year, which will impact us.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the budget prep, and I'll explain exactly the numbers that we used and compared to what we have used in the past. And so if you look at the budget summary, this is a very good graphic to kind of explain as you break down the salaries and benefits or people, you know, in the operations of the school district. So if you look at the certified salaries, we spent approximately $50 million on certified salaries, which is 38% of your budget. Non-certified salaries is $18.5 million, and it's 13.96. Retirement, $9.5 million, 7.24. Medical insurance, $9.3 million, 7%, and other benefits, $3 million and 2.33%. So if you added those all together, you know, you're getting up in upwards of 68 to 70% of your budget is certified staff or certified people.
Give me an example of other benefits.
Other benefits would be, Katie, help me out here.
So like life insurance,
Okay.
There are other things though.
Yeah. Fees to, dues for organizations that,
Yep.
Got it.
that's not considered a benefit though.
no, the ones that, like, principals are allowed to join a principal group or,
Yeah, that's a purchase service though.
that's purchase service.
But the life insurance,
insurance
the
Life
short,
insurance, yeah,
disability.
Disability, yeah.
got it.
Thank you, Katie.
Yep.
Okay, and then operations, you have professional services, we have repairs, transportation is built into that, the other purchase services, and then supply budget, so you can see from an operations standpoint, you add those together and you're around 20% of the budget. And then capital and debt payments, and those debt payments include your 2014 bonds, and also include any lease purchase that you have made previously. So that's what all your debt payments come out of. Now, one thing that I have talked to Larry Hart about, and because of the economy the way that it is, it looks like we're going to be in a position to take those bonds back out and call those again, reinvest those, where we'll be able to save some dollars. It'll probably be March of 2021, but we're going to have an opportunity to save some money on some of those payments that we're making. So, and he'll prepare that for us and probably start talking about that in October or November. You know, kind of like just refinancing your house or something along those lines. We would just be doing the same thing to that because the interest rates are so crazy low right now. And then I think the next one, it just breaks it down by in a circle graph on the budget summary, the exact same thing that we just talked about. But I think the most important part of this is the little box down there that says SJSD enrollment. As you can see, from 2015 to 2019, we had declined in approximately 600 kids. Now, with that being said, we have no idea how to prepare moving forward. We could have 7,000 kids show up to school next year. Well, we have no idea.
Do we know what happened in January?
We do know what happened in January, and we were actually pretty steady. We actually had an increase, well, it would have been, yeah, January. We were down in September and up in January. And so we're pretty close to that number that was provided for you, the 10,922.
Yeah.
And that's not surprising because there's a lot of mobility in this area.
Yes.
Come January, they've run out of rent. They've been, you know what I mean? And we would see that even people leaving St. Joe coming to Savannah, people leave Savannah area or any of the areas coming into St. Joe. I mean, because of the community we're in, that's not unusual that there'd be maybe an addition of 100 kids come January.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yes.
Question on your pencil up here.
Uh-huh.
Starting with the frontline teachers, how far up the organizational chart does the direct instruction go? It goes up to principals, or does it go up to principals, does it go up to the directors?
All the way to the top, all the way to the superintendent.
That's all considered direct instruction.
Direct instruction.
But down here, you can, 38% would be, the box below, is that pretty much 100% teachers then?
On the certified salaries?
Yeah.
No, that's
That's everybody.
everybody, anybody certified.
Oh,
With
All
a
the way
teacher
down.
certificate.
Principals,
Yeah.
superintendent.
So your support staff would be
Salary.
non-certified.
Yep,
yeah.
So instructional support on the pencil then is, what's that?
Tag.
It's like paraprofessionals,
SLPs, your
Yeah.
speech and language.
anybody who aids a
PTs.
student but is not.
PTs,
Special ed,
OTs.
Got it.
Most of it's driven through the special ed program, yes.
So
Now,
it's
not all of it, because there are regular ed paras, I think we have some, right, Marley?
That's right.
But.
So is a lot of
most-
that paid by federal dollars then?
A majority of paraprofessionals are paid by the special education Part B dollars, but you have some Title I paras as well. So it's not 100% reimbursable through federal dollars for those paras.
But like speech and that kind of stuff is federal.
And sign
dollars.
language people
Not-
too though?
Not necessarily,
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly how special education has split their funding. I feel like most of their funding is through paraprofessionals, but that might be a question for Dr. Thomason. I don't know that we have federal,
We get a certain amount.
Right.
And
I was
then they
gonna
have
say,
to, they take the amount that we receive, which is very similar, it actually went down a little bit this year, or they're telling us it's gonna go down a little bit. She takes that, moves those dollars around, and then we have to supplement on a local side what we don't take care of from the state and federal side, Dr.
So
Green.
my-
So there are a lot of areas, so not every para is funded from federal funds, but some of them are.
Or they're
But she
helped.
targets the ones that are.
or every service, because we are expected to provide, I mean, I had students in my class that had registered nurse paraprofessional, but had to be because they had feeding tubes or breathing, you know, I had that. So there are a lot of services that we as a school district have to provide that federal dollars don't cover, and we have to because we have to provide that service for those kids. So I didn't want you to think that a lot of that stuff was covered, because I would think most of it isn't, and we
Yeah,
pick it up and
most of our
have to
federal-
cover it through our local dollars
yeah.
or state dollars.
And another thing that's a good point that Tammy brings up, another area that we can retrieve some of these funds is through Medicaid. And down in the nurse's office, they track all of that stuff, and we have a reimbursement that we receive each month, and we have maximized that reimbursement out. We're receiving a lot more today than we did even last year, and a lot more last year than we did the year before. So she's doing a good job of tracking that stuff for us.
Where are things like purchasing, business office, nursing, where are they on the pencil line?
Like nursing, support services,
Okay. And purchasing, warehouse,
that would be in facilities and maintenance.
okay. Tech support would be probably over in.
Support services. Now, some of your tech support could be in direct instruction, depends on whether they have a certified, whether they're a certified employee or not.
Is that for certification just through teacher certification, or is it?
Teacher
For other
certification.
kinds of
Yeah.
certifications?
Teacher certification.
Only teacher, yeah.
Because that doesn't include our social workers who are
Certified social workers.
certified social workers.
They're not
but yeah,
certified
Your
teachers.
certified staff is those who are
Certified
certified with teachers.
teachers.
And to be able to go up the scale all the way to the superintendent, you have to first be a certified teacher.
Yep.
Going back to the enrollment question,
Except
and
for
we don't know what
finance
the numbers are gonna
sometimes.
look like. We assume that there's some families that will choose to not send their kids back, keep them home. And that's where our distance learning, I think, is hopefully gonna kick in. Will they be counted in enrollment?
Actually, and they'll be in counted enrollment, and it'll probably even be better, because you can count, distance learning at 94%.
Who's the new guy here?
Where's the sergeant at
So you
arms?
get
Find him
94%
for the phone
attendance from virtual education. And as you know, obviously, on average, our students don't come to school 94% of the time because our average daily attendance is closer to 90.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
It is interesting.
so that actually could be a definite benefit for us.
I wondered how that was going.
Yeah.
One of the things we'll have to look at, and Marley and I visited about this morning, right now, our kindergarten enrollment is down substantially.
I saw that.
Normally, we have about 800 kids per class, and I think today we're only have 450
Oh, wow.
some kids.
I put it, it was in the Friday update.
Yeah, it was in the
Provided
Friday
to the board
update, I
last
saw
week.
that.
Holy
Kindergarten is
smokes, that's
483 right now.
So, and we've been publicizing it, but of course, we'll still keep going. We hope we get closer to 800, but if you don't, you can see from 800 kids to 483, is that what you said? That's
But that represents
300
one
kids
English
right there.
language learner. So we know that there is a population of children that have not registered
Yeah.
and will still be registered.
Well, I would imagine that parents might be wondering what's going on,
Right.
and they're not,
Committee.
they're not doing anything when they're, figure we don't even know if school's starting and whatever.
So the survey that went out, when does that window close?
It closed
It
yesterday.
just did.
Okay. So when do you expect to have those results? Sorry, I have a stiff neck, I'm not.
That's okay. So Kendra had and shared all of the results with us yesterday.
That was the survey on distance learning.
No, it was the three surveys I talked about at the last board meeting, the parent, the faculty, and the student survey. So
Okay.
getting a handle from the staff perspective on how many staff members have certified medical conditions that we need to account for regarding safety. And then parents and students, and even staff, we did social emotional checks as recommended, and did some gauging on, I plan to send my kid back to school with no reservations face-to-face, with some reservations, or I will not send them back until there's a vaccine, just to kind of give us a litmus test on what that looks like.
Do you know about what your return percentage was, based on what you?
Is it 1,700 on one of them? I can't remember, I looked at all of them yesterday, and the numbers are blending in my mind right now.
I want to say one was 1,700, one was 1,200.
Yes, and the staff
Still
return
good for
rate
St.
was
John.
8 something, I believe. Of course, you'll get the full briefing on that. We just looked at the preliminaries yesterday, but I was surprised by, it was divided by elementary, middle school, and high school. I feel comfortable sending my child back. I feel moderately comfortable. I'm surprised that there were more, I feel comfortable sending them back with very little hesitation than I have suspected. And were indicative of emails we were getting earlier on in the COVID season.
Well, and I think that supports the research that the younger 18 and under, the percentages are almost nil as
They
far
don't
as,
register, yeah.
yeah, as far as
On the
being,
graph.
yeah.
I
But
also think there's some COVID fatigue too.
I do
People
too.
are rebelling
I do too.
against the notion of social distancing and home staying and those kinds of things. I understand, so.
So I shared that just because number-wise, that could have an impact on it. Like we've said before, the count data in fall will be a big measurement as to what happens with the budget.
the following year.
And I think I mentioned this to you in the last board meeting, this document this year, more than any year previous, is going to be a working document rather than something that you're gonna see at the June meeting and then something that I'll do an amendment in March and then we'll be done and smile and close it out at the end of the year. We'll probably have to amend it as soon as the tax rate comes out, so you'll have an amendment in June. We'll have to in August. We'll have to amend it as soon as the first enrollment count comes out, which is the last Wednesday in September. So you'll have a September count, then we'll amend the budget for real enrollment in October. And then we'll have another January count, the last Wednesday in January, so you'll have a February amendment. And so we'll be talking a lot more about that and talking about the conversations that are taking place between the departments on how we're going to prep for the loss of the number of students and how many positions that's going to be. And I think we want to be transparent with that across the board. I think we'll do our best to take care of it through retirement and attrition. We're in a pretty good position to do that, but I do think it's forthcoming to at least let the staff know that, you know, if the enrollment's down 700 kids, that constitutes how many teaching staff, you know, and they need to know that. And so the people that were hired this year, you know, I mean, they're not put in a spot in March or April where we come back and say you're not going to have a job. That's not what we want to do. So we're going to have to start those communications come November, and they're not going to be easy, you know, and it's not easy, but I think it's definitely better to do it that way than it is for it to be a surprise. So.
Or for us to be accused of it being a surprise.
Right.
Even though we have talked about it. I mean, we're going to have to be very intentional about that information dispersed amongst our people especially, because not just teachers, all of our other positions too, if we're down with kids, it's going to affect every position.
And I think it'll be important, obviously because of some of the issues that we're going through, we couldn't invite everybody that's on the finance committee, but this will be an important committee, especially from the public standpoint. The people that we have serving, Cappy has agreed to continue to serve on this as well as an addition. So there'll be people that we're going to have to trust that could send the message, you know, and kind of send that out there, you know, what it does cost, you know, what is going to happen. Because we can talk about it and look at each other and we can talk it to death, right, in this room. But until somebody goes out and puts the message out there to the community, we're going to be at fault until that happens.
That was my point.
So yeah, it's going to be very important. And then the last thing over there, when Tammy has been on here long enough, I think, and Cappy, of course. But when I took over, there were 9 funds that we had built into the budget. We have 4 now, and those are just definitions of what those funds are. Fund 1 and Fund 2, you can put those two together, and that's your operations. That runs the school district. That pays everybody. That runs everything. Your capital projects fund is Fund 4, and that's where you try to keep up with the preventative maintenance type things. You put dollars in there to assist you and with building needs and those types of things. And then debt service, obviously you know the debt service is a revolving account, and you pay that down, and that doesn't affect anything. So your fund balance is built from the combination of 1 and 2. And I said 1 and 2 could be the same, but I can't get Katie to believe that yet. So we're still having the teachers fund. So
Well,
you
I
could
thought
really
you didn't
operate
have
with
to
only
have
3 if you wanted to.
I thought you had to have the teachers fund because it always had to show a zero balance at the end of the year or whatever.
That's not from a statutory
Okay.
standpoint. That's not anymore. But that's how
It
I'm
used
telling you.
to
That's
be.
how 90% of the people operate, and that's
'Cause it
the way
used to
she
be that
operates. So
way,
we're leaving it that
yeah.
way.
And, I mean, but I thought at one time it was a statute point.
It
but
was.
maybe
Yeah, it
isn't.
was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I think when I came on the board, everything was just in operations.
Was it? Yeah, and then they moved it to where you just had to show that you were spending those dollars on teachers, and I think that it's not a bad thing.
No.
Because, you know, if you come to me and said, you know, how much do we pay our teachers, then we can track that from a monthly basis, but just know that those dollars are all one spot and they're all doing the same thing. It's not like ants are running in a different direction. But
So, I mean, roughly 60 million for teachers? Am
Mhm.
I reading that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that's including their benefits?
Salaries and benefits. So you have your certified salaries, and then probably, I would say 70% of that medical cost is gonna be certified. 70% of that other benefits, so yeah, it's gonna be close to 60.
And notice it says tuition payments to other school districts. About how much of that is our budget? Do we really pay that much out?
Katie, can you plug that in?
I mean, I don't, just on,
Can you tell me where you see that? Is that still on the breakdown? Tuition payments to other school districts?
I don't know. I just saw that under the description, which would give us an idea of how much of that is tuition
Oh,
payments.
for fun too.
Uh-huh.
I don't believe that we pay, I'm trying to think. Claim Care is doing it, so I don't know that we know exactly how much right now. I do know we've been receiving a lot of tuition payments from other school districts for their local tax effort.
I would
See,
say
that's
that
what I would think.
it
We
probably
receive
outweighs
more.
it. It outweighs it now, and I think you guys remember when I first started, we received like $13,000, and it's in the hundreds of thousands now.
Wow.
Thanks
From
to
the
Gabe's
From the
efficiency.
receivable side.
Wow, that's a
the,
significant amount.
Claim
Yes, it is.
Care has done a good job for us.
Mhm.
And it was just a job that needed to be, we either needed to hire somebody full-time to claim the dollars, or we pay them to do it. I'm not so sure, we're not in a position now that in 2021, we look at it and we weigh our options there and maybe put somebody in a full-time position.
Cheaper than
If it's gonna be
paying
cheaper than
workplace.
paying them,
Right.
because they're getting 30%. So when you get up into $200,000, I
That's
mean,
a lot.
obviously you're paying it 60,000 and.
You could pay a salary for that.
Right.
But I
Right.
mean, the whole.
But we
point-
weren't in a position to even talk about that at the time because it was a guessing game. We had no
Right.
idea what we were gonna receive. But Madeline downstairs does a good job of tracking all that stuff for us, and we should be able to put there's a couple other areas that we're gonna look into. What's the guys that drive around at night and check the buildings?
Security.
Securitas, that's another thing that we'll probably weigh our options about possibly hiring those types of employees in-house.
And you gotta have somebody manage them.
Right.
Gabe, add that to your.
Add it to the list.
All that goes on the operations side, Assistant Superintendent of Operations.
Plate.
I've got an uneducated question. When a teacher signs their contract for what their pay is for the year, does that include the district's matching retirement funds and medical insurance?
No.
So
Only lists
if a
their
teacher makes
salary.
$45,000 a year, they also get whatever 15% more goes into their retirement plus 7.5% more that goes to their health insurance.
Yeah,
At the
so
same
whenever.
time, the teacher is matching that 15%.
Right,
It's 14
right.
point something,
I
so they're
know.
taking that out, yeah,
But-
it's a
but
match.
I'm just saying that is added on to what that contract is.
Right, the
you know.
expense of the contract.
Rick, I had the exact.
What you can do, Rick, is you can, Lou asked the exact
It's
same
like
question. It's about
24%.
24%. So if you take somebody's salary, you multiply that by 24%, and that's the real dollar
Real
amount.
dollar cost.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's how much the taxpayer is investing in a teacher.
That's
Right,
above-
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the
Exactly.
And that
investment.
includes all benefits.
Yeah, it's salary, times
Every year
24%,
they're investing
that
that.
totals.
Yeah,
all
your
in.
retirement's 14.5. Retirement on a non-certified employee is 6.8. And then your health insurance is about 7, you're right. Our health insurance here is a very rich policy. It's a very sacred policy. So it's not anything that, there's some dollars that could be saved within the health insurance if we ever have to come to that point, and that conversation might have to take place.
That's a real morale issue though, when you go to touch.
Exactly, and so that's why we haven't, but, there are districts just where teachers are paying $100, $200, $300 out of their pocket, which our teachers are very fortunate that they don't have to, they have a plan where they can choose a zero.
It comes down to a great health insurance benefit versus
Versus
class
salaries,
sizes.
or class sizes.
Or salaries,
exactly.
yeah.
Or salary,
Yeah, if we
you know,
could
as a teacher, I always offset that, you know, that was part of my benefit. So maybe the salary wasn't as pretty as what it is 30 miles down the road, but I know the health insurance package was far superior than, I've got friends in Platte City and it's, our
Right,
health
so
insurance package
This
is
has
so
happened
much
in the
better.
past, so what happens is if we slash that now, then they don't have the salary or the benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to slash anything.
Just saying, looking forward,
Did you
consider that.
We realize we're self-insured as I don't know, I thought that would be sometime to.
We are
did-
self-insured.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did
No,
that
that is
a
great,
year ago
yeah.
or 2 years ago? A year ago?
That was actually,
That was 2 or 3.
no, it was
2 or 3,
before,
yeah.
yeah, Kathy, that's 3 or 4.
I hadn't retired yet.
Before you came on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I remember.
I hadn't
believe-
retired.
It was
But anyway,
because the insurance was
manages
going
that?
up so much.
You were getting hit with 12, 15.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
going up a
Yeah.
lot
Stories
and
of it.
self-insuring turned out to be
Who
cheaper
manages
and the way to
that
keep
fund?
it
That
managed.
Actually, right now, J.W. Terrell or Marsh McClendon,
We sub it out to somebody, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah, we have a broker that, and we pay him about $90,000 a year, I think, to manage it. It's about a $2.5 million balance, give or take. It usually ends, whenever we present it to the board, it's usually around 1.8 million, but that's without the next month's revenues because of the timing of our board meeting. So would you, about 2.5 million at a
Right
time?
now, what's gonna be presented at the June board meeting, it stands at 2.1 right now.
And that's what that will be without the June revenues.
So I just thought that was important for you to know. I thought Lori was here in the audience when we did that, but I didn't know if you knew that, which is a big thing
It's a
because
big
we do
thing.
have a lot of control over it then
You have a lot more
with
control
what
and you
we
can manage
are able
it.
to do, yeah.
And you can take chances a little bit, which we did a little bit this year. So a little more risk, but a little more reward, or a lot more reward.
A lot more reward, it has been.
There's a limited amount of risk, there's a stop where it
Stop
doesn't.
loss.
Yeah,
There's a
that we don't
ceiling, there's a
just,
ceiling.
we just won't go all the way to nothing.
And we have reinsurance also, don't
We
we?
do. We do. Okay, any other questions about this document before we turn it over to the fiscal year 2021 budget?
Am I correct in assuming we take the budget summary over here, it has all these percentages, and somewhere each one of these fits into the circle on the right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Again, I just have to comment what amazing document this is.
And Katie
Can
and
appreciate
Bridget,
it.
Katie provided the information and Bridget put it all together, so yeah, thank them for that. And it has, I mean, we've had people call us and thank us for putting that on the website. So I think it is pretty self-explanatory and, you know, as things change, you know, once we set the new tax rate, we'll have a new document on there for FY '21 and probably September. Be about the timing we can update the numbers and those types of things. Okay, so we'll move on to the preliminary budget, and as you guys know, we'll be presenting a preliminary budget to you for your approval on June the 22nd. And I kind of wanted just to talk about it as a whole today. These are not necessarily firm numbers. You'll see projections. We'll have 19, 20, 2021 on there for your visual sight come the 22nd. But today, I just wanted it to be more of a dialogue session where you give us some feedback on helping us build it. How you want it to be presented to the public. So we didn't have to take up 3 hours in a board meeting by doing this. So any input is requested. No input is bad input. And so I'm going to walk you through and tell you how we built it. And if you feel like it's too conservative or not conservative enough, then those are the types of things that we need to have discussions on. There's going to be some things that are alarming moving forward. There's nothing you can do to fix that at this time with the dollars that you have. I mean, it is what it is. And for the new people, I'm sure that you guys have heard that we have a a sunset on our levy, which is 3 years, it's gonna be 3 years down the road now, as we move into FY '21. Will be 3 budgets before, then we'll be preparing for it after 3 more budgets. So there's, and that's a funding cliff of $7 million.
What year does that run out?
It'll be FY '24, right, Katie? Yeah, FY '24. And you're in FY '21 right now. So, first thing is, you'll see at the top where we have revenues and then we have expenditures at the bottom. The total operating fund, your anticipated fund balance at the end of this year is $24,822,316, which is going to constitute a little bit more than 20% reserves. That's something that the board directed me to do, was get those numbers up there above 20, and we're up above 20, and we'll keep them up above 20. It's going to be a challenge to do that as we build FY '22, but for right now, I can tell you that this budget that we've built for June 30th of 2021, you should end. If you go down to the bottom, it says anticipated fund balance 20.19. That's a very conservative number to me too.
So what do we have now?
Right now, it's about 22.38, right? 2775, something
I
like
mean,
that.
the current standing right now is 36.83.
Well, what did we end up with last year?
22,
1.4?
yeah.
Yeah. 36 because we haven't spent anything in June.
Right.
And it's
So
all,
we-
you
we
spend a
gotta-
lot of money in June in
Yeah,
school
you
districts.
do. You finish up your year in June.
Yeah.
Well, a few years ago, when our fund balance was 25-26%, there was a lot of noise from the public that we were sitting on too much money and that we should be, putting that into things or paying the teachers more and different stuff like that. So you don't want it to get
So I
too
think
much
that
higher.
But this pandemic's a prime example for
Why
why
you
you
have
gotta
that.
have
Yeah.
that kind of money in
Well,
reserve.
mostly it's to pay all of your bills when we're not getting taxes in, 'cause all the taxes come in January for the most part. And then you spend it all down through the end of the year, getting some in from federal and state, but, you're gonna run out and have to take a loan if you don't have enough
Right.
in there. So it's not like you really have 20% all of the time.
Right.
You have a lot more, she was just saying like right now,
Right.
but then you have less as you get to the end of the year. And you need to always make sure you have enough. And then of course, we've been down to like 16% now.
Yeah, I think it was 15.99.
Yeah, I was
or-
gonna say it was
Yeah, it was
15
low.
something when.
Really close to 16, right?
Gabe took it over.
That's when we said we didn't want to ever be below 15.
So,
And I'll be honest with you, if in a school district this size, if you get down around 11, I would anticipate 12. You wouldn't be able to make payroll in the month of December.
yeah, because that's 2 months of operating, 20%.
Yeah.
I
So,
think we did.
yeah, that would not be good. So we'll do our best to keep them at that point.
So conservative is excellent, so that we,
Yeah, and I'll tell you how conservative here in just a minute, and I'll tell you, and you can tell me to beef it up, if you want me to beef it up, but, I want everything to be out on the table. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm just trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect the district as a whole. You tell me, you guys know the public better than I, you tell me the best way to go about this. And that's kind of what I'm looking for today, is some feedback. From a local revenue standpoint, how we built the revenue, the local revenue, we come up with a 462 number. And like I said, I'll have those numbers for last year. You'll see that all the revenue numbers are lower than what they were a year ago. The biggest thing, I think, as we prepared this, the collection rate, as Dr. Green had asked a question and Larry both just a few minutes ago, this is a tough one. Our collection rate has always been 96, 97% in St. Joseph for a long time. I built this at 90. Okay, so that 90 is giving you, what would be, is one and some,
Well, the difference between budgeted last year and this year is 3.6 million loss of revenue.
so $3.5 million
That we think they won't collect.
that we think we won't collect. Now, if it comes in at 96, we're in good
Great.
shape, right?
Happy day. No.
It's not going to.
No.
I think it'll come in higher than 90.
But who knows where?
But I have no idea. It's hard for me to guess. Obviously, we've never been in a position like this before. So I think 90 is a good number. If you guys feel like that's okay, that's going to be the biggest driver there. Is going to be your collection rate.
I would rather see it kept at that and jump for joy when it's higher, personally.
Was 2008, would 2008 be an indicator of what we'd anticipate at all?
We could go back and check it. That's a good point. I never thought about that.
I'd check 2009.
9, yeah, it'd be 9 collection, wouldn't it? Yeah. It would be 9 collection
The
cases.
percentage of collection, not necessarily the dollars, or what would we?
Percentage,
Percentage
because the dollars are obviously gonna be a lot different, because it's driven by your assessed valuation.
Right.
Your assessed valuation was gonna be millions and millions lower in 2009, but your percentage, that's exactly.
Yeah, personally, I feel like the 2009 was a more severe incident than what we have this year. I feel like this year, you don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, but it looks to me like the way the stock market's pulled.
Rebounding.
I think that
Yep.
you'll see a stronger economy by September or October.
Construction's still real very good.
Construction never.
It's very competitive, it never shut
But
down.
it'll slow down next year.
Yeah, if we use 08 as our absolute worst case scenario, then we can come up from that.
We'll do that, that'll be easy for us to figure, that's a
Be
good point,
interesting.
thank you, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'll send out to you guys what that collection rate was. This is the kind of stuff I wanted to get out of this meeting, so I appreciate that.
Next year, Rick, you think construction will slow down next year from this?
I think it will. I think it'll reflect the incomes of different businesses and how they
Plant,
Good
yeah,
point.
all right.
go forward.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
got you. Not as much reserves, no new projects. Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so the county revenue, that's the same as local. State revenue, what we have done is we prepared this budget with another cut from the state at $1.3 million in July. That's built into this.
Is that plus June or just July by itself?
This will be July by itself because June's gonna come out of last year's.
Yeah, this
So it'll
will
be
start-
2.6 million total, but it's over 2 different years. We put the same cut in July that we put in June.
That's wise.
We're expecting that. And I think that Doug was on the governor's call as well. The governor, a lot of people are upset as to the amounts and those types of things. In my opinion, I think he's doing it the right way. He's recommending to the department, let's get rid of this, let's get it out of the way. I would much rather deal with it from a budgeting standpoint, bam, bam, and then let me do my thing rather than as a guessing game, well, we're gonna get hit 1.2% in September and 3.4%,
Right.
over a 12-month period, which we did in 2008 and 9. That was much harder. So I appreciate what Governor Parsons has done and the way he has done it. He's in a tough position. We knew the money was gonna run out. It wasn't rocket science.
Right.
So hopefully we take that and that'll be it moving forward. So that is built in there. Whenever you build your budget from a state standpoint, they give you a target, okay? And that target constitutes a dollar amount per student. That target was $63.75 is what they're telling us to build that on. I built ours at $63.55, so it's a little conservative. That's also that's for your all your state payment and classroom trust dollars. Your classroom trust dollars are obviously driven. We lost all of our classroom trust in the month of June. The casinos are back open, and people are gambling in masks, and so hopefully those dollars come back and we see that money. But we were very conservative on that side as well. So, and that's included in the cut, the classroom trust and the state aid. So that's kind of the way we built it from a state standpoint. And so your basic formula money was estimated your students were estimated at 11,44189. So 11,441 kids is what I used to build this budget. This is where I need your help. They're telling us that because of the pandemic, they're gonna allow us to use the second preceding year for budgeting purposes. Second preceding year means 18-19. In 18-19, we had 11,987 students. If we use the 11,987 students, we generate 3.6 million more dollars. So I used 2021 numbers because I think that that's the only way to do it because of the challenge that we face with the 5-year sunset. This will also allow us to have some capital expenditure dollars, because as you can see, the capital projects fund, we'll talk about it here in a minute, but you have a balance right now of 9, if you look up above, you have a balance of 9,132,097, and you're gonna spend 9,132,097, so what's that do to your capital projects? That depletes it, correct? So if you take that 3.6 million, you put it in the budget, you spend it, you're gonna have nothing for capital projects. You're gonna have zero. Well, we can't do that because you have lease payments. Then you're gonna start deficit spending because you have to pay the lease payments. You have to do some things. So this is more of a protective measure. I would like to leave it at the 11,441.89, and we can communicate that. We're communicating it right now to the public. Like I said, we're not trying to hide anything, but we're just trying to put protective safeguards into the budget that will allow you to at least continue some of that moving forward.
I think that's wise. I agree.
And I talked to Dr. Van Zyl about it. Like I said, I mean, and we can work, like I said, it's a working document, and we can work to get that to where it needs to be, to communicate that in September, to communicate that in February. You'll know exactly what's going on and what those dollars are constituting. If we get hit, let's say we get hit in July, which we have built in, let's say we get hit in August or November, that's there.
And then we would have an idea of a future trend by September for enrollment.
Actually, you'll have an idea on the first day. We take it's 7 day, right?
7 days.
We take a 7-day enrollment count. Marley does in academic services. That'll give us an idea of where we're at.
But we're already acting like we know there's going to be additional cuts and.
We built this budget at 300 students less, which I think it's going to be more than that.
I think it's
The
gonna be
other
more than
issue
that
that
too.
you have, as Gabe and I visited, was if you use just what the state allows you, at some point, they're gonna make you catch up to what your real numbers are.
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
creates a much more sharp
Sharp cliff.
Yep.
cliff.
But don't we
than
have that
if
extra
you
money
already take some of that into
Yeah.
account, and then still also know that you have the possibility of the levy issue
Yeah,
still out there. Could you imagine what happened if we got hit
and the levy goes
With
away.
and the
both.
levy goes away?
Yeah.
You know, that's almost,
So we,
you know, I don't know how you come back from that.
yeah, I mean, we spend conservatively and maybe retain some of that extra cash that we're getting from the inflated numbers. Maybe that'll help a little. It's still huge.
Well, and as Gabe said, we're still gonna have issues with buildings.
Yeah.
You know, we're still gonna have issues with parking lots, we're still gonna have issues with boilers and, you know, so to think that you can't have any money to fix facilities isn't a wise situation to be in either.
No.
But
'Cause
we
that
have
happened in
probably,
this district.
in leases, we have $1.5 million payments. In software, we have 2 million, a little more than 2 million. I mean, and you have to have the software,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to pay your leases, so we're gonna have to have something in there.
Right.
And if you don't build that in there, it's just, well, you see how much we're spending this, we're gonna spend 9 million this year. And I'm saying we're protected 3.5 million. Even if we did come in at a collection rate of 94 or 95% and that revenue number even grows even bigger, you're still gonna be $4 million short of where you were at from what you were spending before. And that's whenever people are gonna start, they're gonna notice that. I mean, it's not anything that can go unnoticed. You know, we're making progress, we're putting up new signs, and we're buying new vehicles, and we're doing all of that, but it's gonna stop. And, I mean, I don't know what else to do, but.
You mentioned software programs. Does that come out of?
Fund 4.
That comes out of Fund 4?
Mm-hmm.
Which one's 4 again?
Capital. All the software, which I think you approve those normally in April, the board does, there's a list, and it's like 3 pages long. And the big ticket items are gonna come from Kendra's budget
Yeah, this
probably.
year's assessment, I believe that Lexia was on there.
What's the one, iReady's about 1.3 million, I think that one's up,
Yeah. The total amount for software budgeted this year is 3.5 million.
3.5 million. Now, it'll be a lot less than that next year, because we're paying that big chunk of iReady. iReady's every 3 years,
Correct.
so, and it's over $1 million in itself, right? So it'll come off, so you subtract that million, you're at 2 million. That's why I was thinking it was gonna be a little over 2 million,
Why don't they even that out?
and pay it over,
Yeah, over the 3 years.
yeah. Yeah.
And I would point out, that sounds like a lot, and it is a large amount of money, but with the state not using assessments this year
Yes.
or next year with the waiver, I suspect that there will be some sort of requirement for local growth and progress measures, and iReady is an approved
Right.
vendor for those kinds of growth and progress measures.
Oh, there's no doubt you have to have something,
Yeah.
If we're required.
and iReady's proven, I mean, it's something that has proved itself.
It won't be a new purchase for us if
No.
we're required to do a growth
No.
and progress measure locally.
That's good.
And it also, the timing of it could come just right, because we do have the dollars.
Yep.
You know, we're gonna have the dollars to spend. So it'd be a good time for it to come off. And then worry about it in 2 years.
With everything else.
When the levy's about to fall,
Yeah.
that'd be a good time to worry about it.
And you might mention, speaking of levy, that we're gonna try what year to go, I mean, we won't wait till 2024 to go back and renew that. We're probably gonna do it 2022.
I would, April of 22 is when I would put it on the ballot.
Just keep that in your mind. of
And
when
you
we're
call it
gonna-
an extension,
Right.
Yeah,
which is what it would be,
Extension.
but it doesn't feel like it's something new.
right. So I just thought I should throw that in
Yeah.
here too, because we talk about that as 24 expiring, but 22 is when we're gonna need to go tackle it with the community again.
Should have put it on last week.
I would point out,
Should
an interesting piece of data.
Everything would have passed last week.
Our
Landslide.
online
Yeah.
platform, Lexia, which is one of the two we just talked about, even through the closure of the spring, our usage by students was stable through May.
Nice.
So, I mean, that's something to think about. You hear a lot of talk about, I do or don't like certain programs, but that, it's the vote with action kind of piece, and the kids were using it from their remote locations.
That's good to know.
Tangential comment here, but made me think, has the district done anything or reached out to AT&T as far as services available for underprivileged kids with remote learning, et cetera? You have, okay. I was in there yesterday and he said,
And suddenly,
they've got,
Susan did a lot of research on
Okay.
the hotspot pieces.
okay, all right.
I think we're actually using T-Mobile
Correct.
rather
For
than
hotspots?
AT&T.
Well, and I know Suddenlink was offering to hook someone up for $20, free usage for kids and a lot of parents can come up with the $20 to install the.
Well, and a lot of people owe Suddenlink.
Yeah,
They
right.
won't hook you up if
So they
owe.
wouldn't hook up, so I mean, there's some things out there, I mean, $20, I was like, I'll pay for that kid, I'll pay your $20, because I need my kid online to finish, so he can graduate, But there were a lot of things offered out there, so, and I would assume they'll offer them, but I mean, how long can they offer that kind of stuff before they start taking the hit, so I don't know. I don't think we can count on it, we can just hope for it.
Months maybe.
Yeah.
I would not count on that.
Yeah, we count on it, yeah,
They're hoping
There's,
to-
there's internet and then there's internet.
right.
Hey, Katie, can you give me an operating number for 1920? For them to compare to that 122, just so they know how much the revenues, And like I said, we'll put that on the June document whenever you approve it, so you'll have,
126.
yeah, I think it was closer, yeah, I think it was about that.
For revenue, you said?
Yeah, revenue, the total, just for 1 and 2.
Budgeted amount was 128.9 million.
So you're about $6 million less from a revenue standpoint.
Without closing any stores.
And that's all driven through enrollment and your collection of taxes. So that's your levy.
It is, that's our levy, you're right. Or we would have been closing it.
Okay, we'll move on to expenditures, salaries and benefits. Right now, the salaries and benefits are estimated at 3% increase from current year. The personnel budgeting is not completed yet from HR, so we used a 3% increase. With that 3% increase, we also included all of the additions that the board approved of $1.3 million in staffing back in February, March, I'm not sure when that happened. But those positions that you approved, that's all included in that. And it's included in that, and then the 3% on top of that. So we should be safe, because your step, which the board had voted, if you figure a step, it costs 1.356%. So we're protecting against that. And that salary number will be real on June 22nd. It's not
So
real
the rest of
right
the 3% is the benefits
now. No, the benefits are included in that.
in the 1.35%?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just as
So
a
then
re-
what's the salary? You said the salaries were 3% higher, and you just.
I built them at 3%. This number is showing you 3%. Because I don't know, I mean, there are other positions that were added throughout the year and deleted throughout the year, and it would be hard for me to track that. So when personnel budgeting gets done, which should be this week, that'll be a real number, and I'll go plug that real number
see.
in. So I would say, from an expenditure standpoint, that salary number is $500,000 high, at a guess.
And I would remind our 2 new board members that, and part of the levy was to increase salaries by giving a step for 5 years, to do that for 5 years, right?
Guaranteed
And so
there'd be a step.
guaranteed it, so that's money we promised in the levy, we definitely want to stick to that, because we want to stick to what we promised. We want to be able to show the community dollar for dollar that we've done what we said we're going to do with that money, so when levy renewal comes, or even in the future, it's part of building that trust. And so in these times, I noticed I saw a district the other night who froze their administrative salaries, gave a step to their other certified staff. There's lots of stuff going on. I'm sure there are a lot of districts that are freezing salary
There
schedules.
was a district that had said they were gonna give a raise and then actually voted to have the raise and then rescinded.
And then had to rescind, because a lot of times that happens, because they vote in March or whatever, and this hit right at that
After
time.
that, yeah.
So it may seem, I never want to freeze a salary schedule
good
because it
morale.
really impacts retirement. But if ever there was a time, this may be it. At the same time, we are not, because we've tied that to the levy, and we want to be very intentional about that, where we spend those dollars, and that we stick to that levy unless we just absolutely can't. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then really the only other thing that's built into the expenditures that's different is we plan on transferring $5 million to get you to the $9.1 million for capital improvements that we have budgeted. There probably are a couple of areas we can take a look at that. We could make that number a little bit lower if we needed to.
They often come in under budget,
Yeah.
so.
Does that?
And they actually, the ones that have been bid so far, the roof projects, everything's been under, so.
They try to make sure that it doesn't ever surprise you with
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
Does that include the transfer money we're going to do, the money we had set aside for early childhood?
It does not.
Good. Okay, that's encouraging.
With these state cut transportation, on the first round of cuts
Mhm.
with the governor, that they cut transportation, left the foundation formula alone. Obviously, that was cut later. What is that going to do for our expenditures for transportation here?
Well, it affected us on the June cut, it affected us at $107,000.
Okay.
That 13% constitutes $107,000. I hope they keep cutting transportation, I hope they cut it back to zero, because it's easier for me to budget something like that than it is for them to start playing with something.
Formula,
Yeah, formula dollars.
The per pupil
and
dollars.
per pupil and changing those types of things.
Okay.
Transportation has been underfunded since the late
Years.
90s.
Right.
And they might as well, I mean, we're still gonna transport kids to school, right? We'll just take it out. Force us to transport kids to school, quit playing games. So, anyway, did we build in 107 for July as well on transportation?
We actually built in I think it was a 16% decrease in transportation.
16, so that's a little higher than.
13.
Okay, all right.
But I like these conservative, a little higher numbers
Yeah.
here. Especially with the unknown.
The unfortunate thing is our transportation costs don't go down.
No.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And, you know, we were in a position to where we could save almost $1 million this year. And we hope we're not in that position next year.
Of course, if
But-
rumor mill has it, we might not be paying anything, because you know, the rumor out there is that all the parents are gonna have to transport their own kids to school this fall.
Oh,
So
is that the rumor?
that's the rumor.
one of them, yeah.
That was
That's the one I got started.
Yeah.
It's your fault.
Well, now there's a tactic I hadn't thought of. And then be so relieved when that's not the case.
So yeah, then they'll be, excited when they don't have to do that. Was that a campaign
So he's
strategy? or
thinking
what?
over there.
Yeah,
Funny.
that is fun.
Okay, looking at these bottom line numbers, it looks like you've prepared a budget with a deficit of over $8 million.
And it's all Fund 4.
I was gonna say, but you've also budgeted to spend all your Fund 4. So go back again, and what do you anticipate doing with Fund 4 this year?
Well, we're going to transfer over the amount, whatever, it's gonna be approximately $5 million. We can make an allowable transfer each year of 7% of our budget. So, which constitutes about $9 million, I think. So we're gonna take about half of our allowable transfer that over, because we're gonna have an ending balance in Fund 4. Our ending balance in Fund 4 is gonna be, we'll just say approximately $4 million is what we're gonna end Fund 4 with. We have $9 million worth of expenditures budgeted. Doesn't mean we have to spend it, we have it budgeted. So we're gonna transfer that $5 million to get us to the $9,100,000 to make all of our payments. And then we have nothing set aside in this budget to make that transfer again. But we talked about the conservative measures of the 3.6 and the other, the difference in the 90 to 96. That would allow you some room to transfer those dollars the following year. Because you don't want to have zero in capital projects. You can't have zero.
You can't.
But that will help you keep from deficit spending. And in a situation that we're in right now, when you start deficit spending, it's like a snowball running downhill. And especially if something like this would happen again, I mean, you're not going to survive very long.
On the cycle.
I agree.
So there'll be some dollars there. We'll communicate that. We'll know better. That's public education budgeting is so funny because they give you all these estimates, right? And you're supposed to create a $136 million budget off of a couple of estimates that they give you. So this is nothing real. This is our best
It
guess.
adjusts all the time.
Katie and I, we like to disagree with a lot of that together. And
They get out their
It's good to-
crystal balls.
it's good
you
to
know.
have her around. She's a little more conservative than me, honestly.
One is a magic 8-ball, one is a crystal ball.
There you go.
She worries about $1,000 in the $136 million. I said, if it doesn't constitute over $100,000, then, I mean, it's just not.
So we need to make sure we pay that position well. Is
Yeah,
that what you're telling
yeah,
us?
she's doing a good job.
But it's like a curriculum is a living document. I appreciate the approach to this as being a living document.
Yeah, and she's done a good job of since I started, we prepare a lot of documents for you guys, each meeting that kind of gives you an exact crystal ball of where you're at. But we'll better understand it in September, just like you'll better understand it in September. We think this is pretty, we think it's conservative, but we also think it's, we think it's strong. We think we can live by it. We wouldn't put it out in front of you if we didn't think we could live by it. We're comfortable that the fund balance will end above 20%. And I think that's a good thing for the district.
Really good thing,
So.
really good.
So let's talk about what you want to see on June 22nd or June 17th, whenever we send that out. You want to see 2 preceding years? So what it would look like, it'll say 2021 operating, 43,462,000, and then it would have 19-20 operating, 45 million, and I'm just using these numbers facetiously, and then 18-19, 47 million. So you can kind of see the trend.
That would
is
be
2
great
years
if
okay?
I would do
like
2
to see
years.
2
Okay.
years.
I think going
Okay.
more than that would be,
Probably confusing.
yeah, but I think that would be good to, I'm surprised you can go 2 years. I figure you just do.
Well,
go
she
a year
just
at a
pulled it
time.
right off the budget.
Okay,
It might be small, you might have to wear some glasses, but
it's okay.
we'll get it figured out. And we'll do the same thing on the revenue side. And see, of course, the revenue side doesn't have to be budgeted amounts, they can be real,
Right.
Real.
real expenditure amounts. Or real budget amounts on the revenue side and real amounts on the expenditure side.
And are you gonna go back and check what Brian was saying about 2009 and?
Yeah, we'll get
And
that,
maybe use that,
hopefully get that today.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because that might be closer even then,
Yeah.
and maybe not as conservative as this is, but at the same time, I don't.
I'd be
wanna
interested to see, because I think that, I remember preparing the budget in 2009, and I think ours, even a small district as I was in, I think it was a couple percent difference. And ours was always 99%, on the collection rate, and I think it was like 97 if I remember correctly. So I bet there is
That'd be a good
that's a good point. I'm
basis.
glad you brought that up. We can actually look that up today, and I can send an email out, and I'll just send it to everybody that was here.
All right, so you're ending with about the same fund balance, but you've depleted Fund 4.
Yep.
This deficit here at the bottom, where's that number coming from?
You subtract see your total operating fund for fiscal year
Okay.
2021,
Got it.
subtract
Yep.
the
Yep.
122,740 minus.
So, not a big deficit,
No,
Well, certainly
on paper.
change.
on paper, yeah.
Which for 2021, it's 21-22
Yep.
that we have to, I would expect this for this year. Well, this looks really good. I didn't expect it this good, but yeah, our big hit will be the next year, right?
And
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, it
we're
kind of just
anticipating.
depends. There's gonna have to be,
That's actually not a deficit.
well, it would be the 122,772 minus the 122,740. So it is a deficit of 31,439.
I have your total operating, okay, okay, gotcha.
Should that second thing say total I don't know.
Well, your expenditures are the bottom.
Yeah.
That's why it's confusing.
Yep.
That's why it's
That's
confusing,
what
I
I
think,
was
because you were looking at, they both said operating and not looking
Yep.
at one as expenditures.
And,
It's all integers.
yeah.
That was a good one.
So what else? What other kind of questions do you guys have?
Shouldn't be many questions, pretty much all here.
I wonder, and that, it kind of piggybacks on this, because it might be a revenue source, what a joke to say that, I say that jokingly, but are we gonna go ahead and put noise on the market to sell, or are we still hanging on to that for a reason? I feel like any buildings that we're not using, now's the time maybe to put them out there and to bring in the money, rather than leave
We
them,
haven't had that conversation, it's probably something longer in planning to
they'll
discuss.
do, pick up when we.
Because part of the process of going through what you went through last year was to determine what facilities you thought
Right.
maybe you would need or not need.
Yeah.
And so we never really got to that
finalized point.
Okay, and my impression was that was a building, once we decided it may not be early childhood, that we would probably not reuse again, but we could very well have to. I get what you're saying. So I'm just
It-
thinking
it
of
depends.
anything we
Yes.
don't absolutely have to have,
You have some other facilities that are actually worse
worse than noise.
than that building, so do you, not to pick on this building a whole lot, but Gabe now has a window air conditioner because the air conditioning unit was at 88 degrees in the business office yesterday because none of the air conditioning was working.
It's much better today, it's 81 now.
And that's still part
No,
of
it's right over here.
the process, but at some point, you've had buildings sitting empty for a while to try to revitalize them,
I
it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us as a district.
Tammy, I agree. I think those discussions in long-range planning are gonna get real lively post-COVID.
And they need
With
to,
this
because
budget.
that's a
They need to
public
get
perception too, that we're hanging on and we're
Right.
spending money
Well,
on buildings
yeah,
that
I
we
mean-
aren't ever gonna use again or aren't using or, I mean, I wonder that same thing too. Granted, I said it with jokingly because what we get from Humboldt,
Yeah, there's a market value of
pennies.
these buildings is.
Right, but it's the perception
Nothing.
of we're
Yeah.
holding on to these when we
And we're
need
spending.
money and we're spending.
Costing us money.
Which ironically, the majority of the people that complain when we sell a property completely disregard the amount of money we spend a
We
year holding
spent
it.
Holding it,
When
right.
you sell it for less than one time's expense, you
Right.
can give it away for all I care, it saves
Right.
us,
saves
It
money.
saves
Saves
us
us
in the
money.
long
Yeah.
run.
donate it to somebody who's gonna spend $1 million, rehabbing it to do whatever with it. It's just crazy.
Just a thought budgetary wise,
Right.
that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
But I think that discussion needs to happen soon,
Soon,
very soon.
We'll have a big bake sale.
huh?
We'll have a big bake
Big
sale.
There
bake
you
sale.
go.
All right. Do it.
We'll all bake it at our own homes.
Post-COVID bake
And we'll
sale.
wear our masks.
But we'll get that question answered for you on the collection rate for 2009. We'll go back and we'll have this done by the 16th, and then we'll give it to Donna and have her upload it in Assembly, so it'll be there on the 17th. So if you have any questions as we put it up or present it, just make sure you call me in advance and we'll kind of talk through it. I appreciate everybody's input today. I was looking for that kind of dialogue, and I hope the two new members got something out of it. I know it's different, public education funding is a convoluted mess.
It is.
Yeah, I'll just
It's hard to
be in
understand.
the learning process.
Yeah.
It will, but these two documents are huge.
Aren't they amazing?
Yeah, they're
Really are
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah, right, I'd say, like, maybe the first or second meeting, when we were looking at the thick printout of a spreadsheet that was, I called my CFO. Like, I'm gonna send you something, you gotta help me understand this, like, read this to me like I'm 4.
So it's much better now presented,
Much
isn't it?
better.
Yes.
And then I learned how much he does to prepare reports for me. So I understand them.
It's about like the salary schedule that I saw when I first came on the board.
Yeah.
It was an elongated, like 20 pages. It was the biggest mess you've ever seen in your life. Am I not, am I right? Were you around then?
Is that sales tax?
Probably as you left.
After you-
Yeah, it was just, it just every year got that way. It was
Gave
crazy.
this,
Other,
yeah,
hey, Katie, what all is included in your additional breakdown? We have the taxes, 39.34, basic formula is obviously the state 29.85. Prop
On
C
the
is,
information guide, I'd have to go back and see
okay,
what
we
I.
can get, that's a good question.
Is that
But there is
revenue?
a lot of different.
Revenue or expense?
Other.
Revenue.
Revenue.
Breakdown of revenue.
Donation?
What is other, 18.59%?
18%. I would assume federal's in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, federal, that would be, well,
Oh,
your
that
10.29 of that
Are
is
those
federal.
special programs?
Title I funding and.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna be, but we'll,
Pardon?
Title II.
Title II, yeah, we'll get that broke down for you.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll tell you exactly what it is.
That would help to see what proportion the levy reflects in income.
Yeah.
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 Ain't seen nothing, they see in hospital accounting.
See, everyone's is bad. It's just, you just have to be specific to what you're doing at the time.
Our business good, we have 3 sets of books.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if Doug or I was going to do this. Since we have what constitutes a consensus today, I have prepared a grant in preparation, in coordination, with the Mosaic Foundation. It's a 3-year grant, $648,000. I need to submit it today. Of course, board policy DD requires that the board approve submissions. This would be a consensus to make the submission. If we are awarded something and you decide not to approve it on the 20-something of June, then we would decline that award, but I need to be able to make that submission today if it is amenable to everyone.
What's it for?
It is for 3 social workers, Olveus Programming and the STAR Trauma-Informed Resilience Training. for
And
schools.
Olveus
had
is
me with
bullying,
research.
our new bully
Three
program.
social workers.
Good deal.
Yeah,
So
I
no
say
guarantees,
here,
but
here.
it is 3 years, total of $648,000.
So do we have a
Just a
consensus?
submission.
Yeah.
Just a submission.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Good, yeah,
Thank
okay.
you. I'll press send.
Okay, well, if there's no other, anything for the finance committee meeting, we will adjourn this meeting. Guess I'll see you guys again in a few hours.
All righty.
Yeah.